my day, I just remember it being like when you said SFM porn. That was the terminology that we used for animated video game character model porn. And then at some point, everybody started saying, "Oh, I use Blender." What do you mean you use Blender? I thought we decided that SFM porn was what we referred to when we wanted to see video footage of Tracer with a gigantic cock sucking the other Futa cock of Widowmaker, or was it? What was her name? Was it just Widow? I can't even remember. Anyways, Widowmaker is just a phrase that you hear a lot in like military stuff. So now I'm getting my terminology all fucked up. SFM heads were crazy 3D animators. I wish I had done the duty and saved more of the SFM porn when Tumblr was still available. There was a lot of good SFM porn, and I incorrectly assumed that it would be there for me forever. Blender has crazy tools to make porn commercials, etc. I heard that the back rooms were made in Blender, basically. Not necessarily the current movie, but most of the videos that made the guy famous in the first place. So any creatives who are out there being like, or not really creative, anybody who's online posting about how now thanks to AI I can finally produce the video that I wanted to without a budget, blah blah blah. I don't have to learn how to draw, I don't have to learn to do this, that. It's like you could have already done it if you had just put in a little bit of work. But we knew that already. I think Backrooms made back 100 times its budget. I mean, I don't know about the YouTube series, but the movie probably had a budget of like 60, 70 million, I'm guessing. Because it's not just Blender. I mean, they have to pay the actors at minimum, so it's probably already doubled its budget, but I don't think it's like at that sort of Star Wars. It's not Blair Witch Project, that's for sure. The real 90s and 2000s head know that if you want to truly make a low-budget movie, you just go out into the woods and walk around in circles and being like, "Oh my god, I think I've seen that log before," and then everybody gets scared. It's about 10 million? Okay, it's pretty fucking cheap. I guess even when they have, like, like, Blender type footage, it's still just going to be like a set. So that's the thing that all these Hollywood overpriced, poorly budgeted movies need to understand, is that you can just shoot things on sets, especially if it's horror. Some of the best horrors made on a dime. Yeah. Obviously, the best way to make horror is just to find some random hitchhikers IRL and then drag them into your small house and then murder them and then videotape it. That will be the best horror of all. Haha, just kidding, Twitch. I would never suggest that someone should make a real-life slasher flick by killing people. That would be wrong. If you don't want to disappear, don't hitchhike. It's pretty funny how we're constantly talking about, like, how scary it is that there's people out there to kill you, and then people in, like, the 70s didn't give a fuck about anything. Not knowing is an amazing power. They were like, I will hitchhike across the country and nothing will ever happen to me unless I disappear, in which that case something did happen to me. Surely this sex death cult will not... Nothing bad will happen. What is the worst thing that could happen? Am I right? If you want to hitchhike in Japan, you'll probably be okay. The possibility of murder rate probably goes down to about 10% instead of like 80%. You can get across Japan with only 5 rapes, you know. The best one was a co-ed killer where they were told not to hitchhike. Spoilers, they still did. People of like the 60s and then into the 70s, they were just like, ha! Those squares, they can't tell us what to do. We believe something to be special, and therefore it is. We're special. We went to Woodstock and did a bunch of drugs. The problem is that all the dumb young people who survived being young in the 60s and 70s haven't really updated their mind on, you know, whether they were special or not. End up in a Soka Gakkai recruitment center because you decide to hitchhike with a bunch of Obachans. Soka is like the C tier in terms of Japanese cults. I don't know what the American equivalent would be. I feel like Soka is lower tier than even something like Scientology or Jehovah's Witnesses or Mormons in terms of like how much you're gonna regret spending time with them and giving them your phone number. In terms of like extremely annoying, regrettable decisions of associating with them, tier lists of cults, they're just really not that impressive. Especially in Japan, which is like a country of like hyper-powered cults. Where you have the Korean Unitary Church, and like peak SS tier, of course, is Omu Shinrikyo, where you're committing some of the most infamous terrorist acts that Japan has had because this weird, ugly bastard has convinced you that he can fly by taking photos of him jumping. For those of you who don't know what I'm talking about, here we have photographic evidence of Asahara in the air in real time as he's fucking floating. Reminder that Omu Shinrikyo made like their own anime and stuff. Any big cults in Japan right now? That's a good question. Nothing in the news recently, but there's always cults in Japan. Japanese society is predisposed to having cults because it's a high trust society where you can get a lot of people to like, once they enter a group, to just like follow orders. It's also a very low religious society, so people who need that like religious opium in their lives, or they need something to latch onto, there's not as much options. Like there's a bunch of religions and all, but so much of Japan is just like irreligious, so Moonies are pretty big, but they hide in the shadows and fund politics. Ironically, after Abe got shot, people started paying attention to Moonies, so it's become much more difficult for them to do their shit. Yamagami? I can't remember his name. He won. Dude literally won. I've said this before, but it would be if, like, after September 11th, people were like, you know, Al-Qaeda, I think they had a point. They were onto something. Maybe America is the great Satan. Because Japan was actually like, oh shit, this might be a problem. And then, I don't know to what degree they addressed it. But they addressed it to some degree. In the very least, Japanese as a whole kind of are now more aware of it, so I don't know if that's going to be enough to stop the people who get caught up in those cults in the first place, but it is probably enough to at least suppress it a little. Japan loves their wellness cult as opposed to religious ones. Average Japanese wellness cult is going to be like anywhere between we're just going to eat natto every day, which is probably actually going to work and make you healthier, to Let's try drinking your own piss. Pretty much everything that happens in Japanese society ends up kind of feeling like a cult to one degree or another. I mean, I showed Hystrixia these specific videos of this one boys' school they had in the 80s and 90s, which it was all set up like, I don't know, the Imperial Army. The military one, yeah, except this isn't actually a military school, it's just people who have chosen to go to this boarding school and just behave like psychos. I love how one of the female students became an AV actress. I mean, it was open for quite a while, so... Oh, here's a short of it. This is them all being forced to sing. It's called Nisse.
聡さん、今田耕司さんの出身校としても知られ、毎日の起床は朝4時、コンクリートで11時間正座、素手でトイレ磨きなどが日常だった。1900
It looks like it's like a combination between a prison and training yourself to be in the military army. If you look at the principal, he has like complete psychopath eyes, but you come in, this is the graduation ceremony right here. The crazy thing is that you might think this is an all-boys boarding school, but there's actually a very small percentage of female population. It's like, Mom, I want to go to North Korea. And she's like, no, we have North Korea at home. Mushroom cuts on the girls. Yes, the term is okappa, which was the hairstyle they had during the war. Some people love being part of a group. It's also important that the head of the group is a complete psychopath. If they show a close-up of the principal, you'll see that his eyes are just like incredibly glassy and emotional. And unsurprisingly, it had people dying from wounds by getting hazed by upperclassmen, and then people like running away and people dying from suicide, so they had to close it after like, I don't know, I think it made it like 4 or 5 years at least before it got in trouble. And then after that, they had to like change all of the management and stuff like that because it was so like fucked up. But yeah. Just like any fraternity, yes. When you put a bunch of boys in those type of scenarios, we can't help ourselves. We have to just like fuck each other in the ass and commit violence against each other until like somebody dies. You forgot telling them how they had to clean toilets by literal hand. Yes. Cleaning toilets by hand is what builds character. How can you say you truly are going to be a great human being if you haven't had the completely meaningless opportunity of not using a brush to clean the toilet? Basically, as soon as men are left on their own, I guess the same for women. If you have, this is kind of why you need co-ed spaces. When you put a group of people in a high-intensity environment, such as a school or a military platoon or something, and there isn't people of the opposite gender to like mellow shit out, what happens is like brutal hazing violence and ass rape. We have lots and lots of proof of this. Brother, how you rate reverse mating press where female tops? I see it as a way to say that you're a subservient little bitch and you are an embarrassment as a man. Reverse cowgirl is fine, though. Saw a JAV with it. Kinda looked cool. Reminder that if you ever want a female to do any kind of femdom stuff to you, you're gonna have to, like, spend a lot of time, like, begging and pleading with her to, you know, peg your ass or whatever. And when she finally does it, she's gonna think much less of you and also be sick of your incessant bitching and stuff. Despite all the feminists telling us otherwise, it's very hard to convince women to take on any kind of male role in society, whether that being on top in sex or, more importantly, having them work in industries like, fishing and timber and high-risk industries like military, firefighting. All of this stuff is, it's hard to convince women that it's in their best interest to do this. Garbage collection and so on. You have to provide them with clear benefits like offering to cook meals for the next week, and then she might finally peg you. Unless she's the type who is really into pegging, then you won't have to beg. I mean, there's a reason why pressing buttons in this stream apparently is in high demand on the internet by the large influx of men who need her to talk about how she's gonna crush their cock or whatever. Because if you ask a normal person to roleplay stepping on your cock and balls, they're just gonna be like, nah, I'm good, dog. The women yearn for the mind, tell them the best Reiki crystals are in there. Yeah, it goes back to the cult discussion. You need to convince women that in order for them to stay young and have healthy looking skin or whatever, even when they're past 40, they need to go into the special mind and dig out the special topaz crystal or whatever. Press doesn't even like pegging, just CBT. I mean, if you think about it, there really isn't much benefit to the woman to do pegging. Especially if you're just like using a strap-on or a dildo or something. I don't know about like those double-headed dildos. When you see like the lesbian content, it always makes it seem like whoever has like you can actually use the double-headed dildo and you're in like a vagina pressure match, and whoever has the strongest vagina can control the movement of the dildo and cause the other girl to come faster or not. But I don't know. I'm not sure if they're actually effective. A lot of arousal is mental, to be honest. Hence why, if you expose yourself as being a subservient man who wants to get fucked in the ass or get fucked in Amazon position, a lot of women will probably be turned off because they don't want that in a mate, even if they say that they're totally okay with men showing their feelings and stuff. I feel like this is one of those things where, like, the incel chuds espouse this a lot on the internet, but they're probably right about this one. I feel like that's one of those honne and tatemaya type things of Western society. I just want my booty hole enlarged by a hot goth mommy. Well, the answer has already been presented in this chat. It's all about your headspace. So just imagine that your asshole is being enlarged by a hot goth mommy as you sit on top of the gigantic horsecock dragon dildo. You just have to use the tulpa, the goth mommy tulpa in your brain, and be like, oh, my asshole is being enlarged by a goth mommy right now instead of a dildo. You can stretch your own asshole. You don't need a goth mommy to do it for you. This has always been the case. Also, for female orgasms, I will never get over the story in the brief amount of the vagina monologues I heard about a woman who just like came on her first date and squirted all over the guy's car seats. I was just like, this has got to be the easiest, lowest maintenance female of all time. I wonder if I can find it. I believe it's called Sour Milk or something.
There was this guy, Andy Netkoff. He was cute. Well, I thought so. He was a cat. That's what we called it in my day. We were sitting in his new white Chevy Bel Air, and I remember thinking that my legs were too long for the seat. I have long legs. And they were smushed against the dashboard. And I was looking at my kneecaps as when all of a sudden he kissed me in this surprisingly take me by control like they do in the movies kind of way. And I got excited. So excited. And there was a flood down there. I couldn't control it. It was like this force of life, this river of passion was pouring out of me right through my panties onto the car seat of his new white Chevy Bel Air. It wasn't pee, and it was smelly. Well, frankly, I didn't smell anything at all, but he said, Andy said, that it smelled sour milk, and it was staining his car seat.
So this is supposed to be a traumatic vagina monologue story, and how she was traumatized for life because a guy rejected her after she immediately squirted on his Chevy Bel Air car seat. But the real victim here is, of course, the man and his beautiful car being destroyed by her immediate orgasm. As usual, nobody thinks about the man's feelings and how his car has been ruined. In all reality, but like, I always think about that as like, damn, if all you need to do is just kiss this girl, also if she has long legs, that's like a real catch right there. Very, not much technique being asked of you right there, you know? He kissed me and I squirted it and he said it smelled like sour milk. And then everybody clapped. I also think you're supposed to have to do it in some sort of like Brooklyn Jewish voice. because every single rendition of that story that I've seen in like acting 101, the woman always does it in like this nasally New York Jew voice. I think it's like some sort of tradition that you have to be like Jewish to do it. I don't know. It's probably like some Seinfeld thing. Hey, what is it about all the squirting? Am I right? Ha ha ha. It's very New York City coded. It really seems that way. Also, you know, it's like 1950s coded as well. The whole scenario doesn't work as well if you're setting it in like 2020 Florida. If you're saying in 2020s Florida or something, you would have to have some Redditors be like, milady, perhaps you could release the flood upon my face just a little bit. Just making the whole setting in like modern version, and suddenly it stops being a story about like sexual humiliation and a story about how you set up an OnlyFans account and started selling your squirt juices for like $500 a bottle. Reminds me of my cousin's ex-girlfriend who was a sexologist. Does she have a podcast? Are there any sexologists who don't have podcasts? Scent of sour milk trademark, yes. No, but she wrote books. This was probably before the modern era. If it was right now, she probably has a podcast. Having a podcast is the new version of writing books. At some point, people realized it was much easier to just speak into a mic instead of properly having something published. That's too difficult. And then they're like, we'll just all have podcasts going forward. Mid-2000s, yes, that was still when you were getting on a fucking plane, you would pick up a gigantic fat book called the Da Vinci Code or something at the airport. Luckily, we're past that point in time and nobody reads anymore. We've conquered that horrible situation. Even podcasts might be too long form at this point for some people's attention spans. ChatGPT summarized the Da Vinci Code into a 30-second TikTok clip for me. Also provide me with like brain rot animations. Summarize the Da Vinci Code into a 30-second clip in which all the characters are fruit. Sexy fruit. Sexy fruit in the Louvre. Learning about the truth of Jesus. I think we have a hit on our hands, boys. ChatGPT summarized the Da Vinci Code into emojis. Oh god, can I actually get the Gemini to do this for me if I waste like 10,000 gallons of water. Summarize the book Da Vinci Code into a few sentences using emojis. Meh. I think it's not as good as I thought. As usual, AI is disappointing. A Harvard symbologist is framed for a murder inside the Louvre Museum. Detective emoji. He goes on the run with a talented French cryptologist to clear his name. They solve a trail of hidden clues left within Leonardo da Vinci's famous artworks. Puzzle piece. Their search uncovers a secret society protecting a historical secret about Jesus Christ. I guess this is the yellow face with the hand on top of their mouth. This discovery threatens to shatter the very foundations of the Catholic Church. You have to tell it to only use emoji. Now summarize the book The Godfather using only emoji. So it starts with a group of people, family gathering, itis. I don't know what that is. I don't even know if that's an emoji. Shocking thing happens. Judicial system, blood, church, blood. I mean, this is pretty accurate. Wine. I guess that is like, they're getting christened. Car, explosion, guns. This is the, Sonny getting shot in the toll booth, I assume. Blood, he's dead, of course. Old guy, I'm guessing this is the Godfather. Bag, necktie, acting. Probably this is the Hollywood scene in which maybe they go and kill the horse. There's no horse emoji. I feel like there should be a horse emoji here somewhere. Violin, father, child, drink wine. I don't know. I'm feeling like this isn't a good way to... Death. I mean, if we're using the skull for death emoji, I'm guessing this is where the Godfather dies. Ask Gemini to summarize the God delusion using only emojis. I can't do something for something that I haven't actually read, because then I won't even know if it's being accurate or not. Also, we've already wasted like 1 year's worth of drinking water for some sort of Peruvian village, so let's try and keep our memeing to a minimum. We should all enjoy the AI being available to us for free while it's still available, though. I know a lot of people are like, I never wanted it in the first place, but this shit isn't going to be available forever. Anybody who thinks their stupid subsidized tech bro content is always going to be there, even when it loses companies' money, is not understanding how this shit works. Just look at what DoorDash or Uber costs right now. Shit is only free until the tech company thinks they have murdered all of their competition, and then they can start jacking up prices. Use China's AI. They put the data centers in the ocean. I mean, you can run your AI locally, right? If you just have a strong enough PC. Surely China putting their data centers in the middle of the ocean won't result in some sort of long-term failure, because if there's one thing we know about Chinese infrastructure is that it's good forever, right? You can run your own image generation operations locally. I don't understand why it's so insanely expensive when we already know that you can run it for much cheaper. You can even run it on, like, I don't know if it's mid-tier or at least like high-tier GPUs. Why does there need to be like $1 trillion data center for this to work? I mean, the answer is because they want to have all the money, because they want like a god AI general intelligence in the future, and in the current version they don't have, it's not powerful enough to run everything. So like that joke-like scenario in that these tech companies are actually trying to create a machine god so they have control over literally every aspect of society. It seems like some sort of stupid sci-fi farce, but it's actually their business model. Same as it ever was. In the past, corporations were just kind of satisfied with the idea of ripping off their customers and becoming a monopoly the normal way by making sure other companies couldn't exist. But now they just want, like, all the money. Some of the money wasn't enough. The goal is to have all of the money. Honestly, I think free IA agents have less than 2 years while still being free, maybe even less. Yeah, we don't know when the bubble's gonna pop, because it's all based on like people's feelings, and by people, I'm being generous because I'm referring to investors who aren't really people. The collective delusion of the investment class, how long can it last before they say we want more money? We want our investments to pay off now. For them, it's never enough, but it's also, you can convince investors that if they spend money now, they can get more money later. I mean, that's the whole point of being an investor, right? If you invest in Theranos now, you'll have $1 trillion later. And if you don't invest now, you'll regret your inaction. And despite most of them already having more money than they will ever need in their life or their children's lives, they're still going to throw money at after more money, because the point is for the number to go up instead of, just having enough money. So it's still very easy to convince these people that they need to, waste their money on a gorillion watts of money of inference. With SpaceX going public, this should be interesting. Who set the SpaceX price? I don't really understand public offerings. Is the price for the public offering getting set by Elon himself? Like, who the fuck is setting that price? They're asking for money based on their assumption of their future worth? Or is there some kind of, like, before the public gets to buy in, the initial offering price is being set by these institutions? Like, I don't understand. Like, I'm hearing people complaining about how public offerings are just a way to offload risk onto the public and then let institutions like pump and dump and stuff like that. But I never really understood like who is setting the actual price in the beginning. Like, news just talks about it as if it, like, the money manifests out of nowhere. They're like, it looks like SpaceX is, the highest set public offering of all time, more than Saudi Aramco. And I'm like, okay, so who decided that? It's Elon, I guess. So they set them themselves. This is where we're going to ask AI again. How is the price of an IPO set? The price of an initial public offering is set through a cooperative process between the issuing company and its investment backs underwriters, primarily based on investor demand gathered during a marketing phase called book building. Underwriters estimate the company's total value. They look at financial statements, growth projections, and macroeconomic conditions. What this means is, it came to me in a dream. Elon whispered in my ear before I went to bed, and in my dream, I dreamt a dream of a glorious, beautiful future in which we all went to space on our own private spaceships, and they were all owned by Elon, which is why this company is worth $18 trillion quadrillion. Most importantly, they compare the company to already public competitors using standard financial metrics. This has definitely not happened. I know nothing about stock, SpaceX, or anything in the current state, and I know for sure that that has not happened. Nobody is looking at price to earnings ratio because the earnings of SpaceX are like negative 100 billion or something. The underwriters set an expected price range, so again, it's vibes. The range is published in the company's preliminary prospectus, also known as a red herring. Even the actual terminology used for this, they're using terminology that suggests that they're basically trying to trick you. Conduct the roadshow. If demand is weak, underwriters may have to lower the price range to attract enough buyers. Remember that if you have money in a 401k or something, whatever, your bank is going to buy it even if you think this is bullshit. It rewards early institutional investors with a first-day gain, generating positive market sentiment around the stock. This is what people are calling, like, basically it's bullshit. Because institutional investors get to buy in before it, and then it, like, fucking crashes after that. I wonder what's going to happen to ChatGPT when the government actually asks them for some of the profit. I mean, before any kind of government asking, don't you think that they're just going to straight up run out of cash? Like, I don't think government is really that much of a factor here. I mean, you're only allowed to tax an entity if they actually make money. If they're just losing money, then it's all a loss and you just get to write it down, so... They start with some government cash, so they need to give them something back. I forgot that OpenAI was supposed to be a non-profit in the beginning. It's been so long since that timeline ended. I've actually forgotten that part. That was a thing. A long, long time ago. I would say that the current AI bubble is the most obvious bubble we've had in history, but just within the last, 5 years, we've had more obvious bubbles like the NFT bubble. At least AI does something. It just doesn't do enough for it to actually be worth what it's priced at. I would also add the metaverse bubble to that, but it would never actually achieve bubble status because nobody believed in it besides the Zucks. He was mad he missed out on more money. I mean, Elon is just, he just likes beefing in general as well. Pretending that you cared about the mission of OpenAI to be a non-profit, blah blah, also gives him internet points among the very small minority of people who still believe that Elon is like a brilliant tech inventor who is going to bring us all into the new age. They're like, look, he's morally upstanding as well. What's the word for the children of my cousins? Anyways, those are the youngest people in my Japanese side family group, and they're all like 2 or 3 right now of my younger cousins, and I'm looking forward to at a family gathering talking to them about growing up in the 90s and being like, you don't understand, I was there when technology was new and interesting. We were all so excited then when we got 3D graphics in video games for the first time. There was so much optimism, and they'll be like, what the fuck are you talking about, Gramps? I should probably go farther back and be like, you won't understand, kitty. When I was growing up, when we wanted to listen to music, we would have to go to the local jazz hall and listen to live music because the record machine hadn't been invented yet at the time. When I got my first phonograph, it was such an important experience to me as a young man in 1910. I had just gotten back from the Japanese-Russo War. Uncle BB, draw me some fan art of my favorite anime. The thing is, that shit will always be relevant, actually. Because people want, like, hand-drawn shit on pieces of paper, even if we get into a world in which people really like AI, there will always be the novelty of, like, drawing shit in real time. If a medium or even late worker goes away, now nobody can replace them, so that's a massive new problem. I mean, it's not even clear if we've gotten to that stage in which, like, nobody has the technical skill yet. I think we're still in the stage of corporations thinking they can replace people and then immediately finding out that they actually couldn't replace them and then having to hire them back. If AI was more successful, we might get into a future in which nobody has skills anymore because, like, nobody develops them because everybody gets fired to get replaced with AI, but I don't think we're even at that spot. I think all the, like, oh, we can just fire everybody shit is bullshit. Some software corporations are closed. Yeah, but, like, also the software corporations, like, what were they producing in the first place? Like, what new software do we have in the first place, whether it's being coded by Claude or whether it's coded by humans? I feel like the people who were replaced in the software industry because they got an AI to shit out code were producing stuff that wasn't really a real product in the first place. And if it is a real product, then immediately gets noticed. It's like Windows 11 having bugs every time it's updated because they're being forced to use Microsoft Copilot. AI is going to cause a mini dark age, but things will fill back in relatively quickly, I'm guessing. I think it's just going to cause a recession. Just like a normal recession. Not really, because the decision to replace humans is made by people who don't understand how code is made. Based on the timeline of how DEI shit worked in media, which was also being done by people who don't understand their product, I feel like the cycle of managers finally realizing that they're not properly reflecting market sources in their decision making is about like 8 years, maybe. So we're entering what, year 4 or 5 of... Maybe we're only entering like year 2 of the idea that you can actually get away with firing everybody. So we have maybe about 6 more years of the corporate managerial class believing that AI is like the god thing. The market might collapse before that because the money is just like way higher than can be sustainable. But if it doesn't collapse, I feel we have quite a few more years. Vibe coding works, but it works poorly, especially the more you scale up. AI is best used for producing porn of your very specific fetish that's so disgusting that you can't hire a commissioner to draw it for you. Because even if a hand has too many fingers, you won't get in a situation in which, like, 2 years later, the hand with 8 fingers is causing a different piece of code to malfunction, and now your entire software is shitting the bed. The hand with 6 fingers in your porn is just there, and it's not affecting anything else. If you can just not look at it and keep your dick erect, ignoring the number of fingers and toes, everything is fine. OpenAI might collapse even before that. OpenAI is definitely the first of these corporations that's probably going to collapse. Anybody who knows about the state of stuff knows that it has the lowest amount of cash flow and the most like aggressive we're going to use money policy. I mean, we're already seeing, I'm saying like we don't know when they're going to start and become less and less tolerant of losing money, but we're already seeing it. Remember, Grok used to be free, and now you can only do it if you're subscribed. But even the subscription models are subsidized in terms of the amount of tokens you get to use versus what it actually costs the corporations. So then you're going to go from like a all-you-can-use buffet model of token usage to a like you have to pay per token because the corporations don't want to subsidize you using 10 trillion tokens in a month just so you can create spaghetti code. And then the corporations that are funding the subscriptions are like, wait, we had an AI budget and we burned through it in a month, which has already been happening for corporations like Uber and stuff, apparently. And then they're like, wait, what is this providing us in terms of benefits? Do we really need this? Maybe we should just rehire all the Indians. Company that spent $500 million on vibe coding last week, and I wonder what they produced as a result. That's the funny part, right? If you think about it, the seeds of this has always been available to us in the way we experience the internet, right? Like, we always kind of have felt the internet is just sort of like this, I mean, think of the terminology we use. We call it the cloud. It's this kind of floating ethereal object somewhere out in the ether, like some kind of god particle out on Olympus that we put in information and the information comes back and we don't think about the cost. But for that to happen, you need to have gigantic fucking, server farms somewhere that's being like air cooled in Greenland or some shit like that. There's all this like physical infrastructure that has to exist, right? And this is before we had AI. This was even like in the early stages of just like normal internet search. There was this always disconnect between the hardware aspect of it, the physical aspect of a lot of stuff, versus like how we would experience that shit. But then like AI like turbocharges that because it costs like 10 times more than the normal internet search cost. But we still are kind of thinking of it as this kind of ethereal ghost that responds to us. The ghost in the machine. I made the connection, guys. I said the word. The ghost in the machine is not running on ectoplasm, phantasmal particles. It's running on electricity. We live in the lamest high-tech dystopia. It can actually get way more worse. Just look at South Korea or something. Or China. We still have so much more room for even more dystopian situations. When is my government mandated plastic surgery going to happen? I felt like that if you're in California, you're already in that state in the first place. You've just dropped out of the looks maxing situation and given up on ever attracting a clavicular style man or maximizing your TikTok audience or whatever you're supposed to be doing. I have to drive 6 hours south for that. Is there not enough, like, plastic surgery clinics in Northern California? Is that really just, like, only a South Cal thing? I figured that you would be able to get it no matter where you were in California, but maybe I don't understand how the scales of economy work. I just automatically assume that if you were in the state of California, you would just have ready access to these type of things, but I guess not. There are ones here, but the best ones are down south. Luckily, I'm in Japan, so I just need a short plane ride to South Korea, and I can get my jaw scraped immediately. Have you drawn any dreadlock gals? I think I've drawn Master Raven, and I think I drew a voodoo woman. I think she had dreadlocks. I can't remember what hairstyle I gave her. Oh, Deadlock. I was like, this guy has a very specific fetish. I was like, no, he's just a Valve drone. Here, I'll draw you the best Valve girl of all. Let me check for references. There we go. And we'll draw him on the Mediterranean and give him his yacht. There. Make him sit on the top of a yacht, but he's bigger than it. So fua fua mochi mochi uwu. Unfortunately, he's lost weight a little bit, I think. I think they told him that he had to lose weight, although he still looks like fucking huge. There's literally a photo of him in a yacht environment with a fucking, I guess it's a Switch or something, or I guess it has to be the Steam. This has got to be one of the Steam decks. He's thin now. I'm sure the doctor was like, dude, if you don't lose weight, you're gonna die, like, soon. And he was like, okay, fine. Gabe will always be fura fura mochi mochi in my heart. I mean, even if he's physically thin, he will always be overweight in soul. They can't take that from us. Opulent and round in spirit. I'd rather have our billionaire overlords be incredibly overweight and disgusting than whatever sorry state of the body type Mark Zuckerberg has. Gabe feels like the only rich guy that still feels like he's not a skinwalker. Yeah, that's basically what I mean, right? Is that Like, all of these people just, like, it feels like they're just LARPing being a human. At least back in the day, our rich people were like, I have all this money, I will eat all the food and be fat, while you peasants are starving and thin. And now in the modern version, all the peasants are the ones that are fat because we don't have access to healthy food. And the rich people all go to their, like, specialized gym and have personal trainers, and they drink, like, specific protein milkshakes that cost $500 each. I got recommended a documentary by some, like, French group on YouTube about the hidden poverty of Americans yesterday. So I was like, cool, I'll have some poverty poured out in the background while I draw Yu-Gi-Oh characters. And they were like, in the Appalachians of America. I'm like, good. Classic Americans are impoverished. Let's go to Appalachia. And they're like, people struggle to eat. I'm like, yes, that's a classic. And then they actually showed the family that was struggling to eat. And, like, somehow, despite being on food stamps, and, like, the father being like, sometimes I skip meals, he was still fat. And I was just like, how the fuck does this even work? Like, what do you eat to somehow maintain, like, the unhealthy body type and still be fat when you can only eat, like, twice per day? Why are you talking like Trump right now? LOL, same kind of speech pattern. We're both going senile because we're both old, is what I would actually say. Trump has to pause because he can't think of what word to say next, and I have to pause because I'm trying to draw at the same time. Good night. It's easy to be fat when all you have is fatty, salty garbage to eat. I know, right? But, like, if you have to skip meals, you'd think that you'd lose weight, but even only eating, like, twice per day or once per day apparently is still not enough to counteract the amount of, like, empty calories you get from the American diet of processed food. It's pretty impressive. Speaking of eating shitty food, yesterday I went to a Jiro-style ramen for the first time since, like, 2010. It had been on my mind, but yesterday I went to Kobe to update my passport, which was actually really easy. The office was extremely empty, and I was like, wow, I went close to it being closing, and yet it's pretty empty. This is a cinch. And the office workers warned me that they were changing the pricing for what it takes for you to update your passport. So if I had waited until July, it would have been 7,000 yen cheaper. And I was like, shit, I'm losing a lot of money on this. But then the lady was also like, yeah, but if you come in July, there's going to be a massive line because everybody is delaying on purpose. And I'm like, oh, fuck, you're right. And I mean, I was already there, so I was like, I can handle 7,000 yen. That's like $50. So I was like, yeah, okay, start the process now. But I was like, okay, we're in Kobe, so let's eat something that isn't available in the area I'm around. Excuse me, it's pronounced gyro. So this is called butaki, which is not gyro, but it's a gyro inspired is what they call these. Let's see if there's a video of the actual location. Oh, okay, here we go. Butakin Motomachi. This is exactly the location I went to. Pig King? Yes. But they don't have the gu. It's just Butakin. You go in, you put in the 1,000 yen. Oh, that's it. He's just buying his train ticket. So here's a pro move. First, this guy is going to 7-Eleven and he's buying Soul Kenbicha Zero Caffeine. This is a mass-produced tea in Japan that claims that it burns your fat as you eat it. This and oolong tea. So people who are going to eat insane amounts of fatty ramen, they drink this tea while they eat their ramen so that they can somehow counteract the 10,000 calories of congealed animal fat they're going to put in their arteries. So this is on the other side of the Motomachi train station. Yeah, it's next to other ramen as well. Oh, they went there new. Okay, so it's the exact same. Oh, they increased pricing by about 100 yen since they made this video. So if you look at the size, the large ramen is 375 grams. Extra large is 500 grams. Small, they only have small, large, giga size, and mini. But when I went there yesterday, they had added warning labels that 250 grams, their small size, is double the amount of noodles that you would get in a normal ramen place. And they have the small ramen be 950 yen in this video. But when I went there, both the small ramen and the mini ramen were 1,100 yen. So the mini ramen was 125 grams. So it's even it's like a normal amount of ramen, but they're not giving you any discount for eating fewer noodles. They're basically telling you that if you're a stupid little bitch who can't handle 250 grams of ramen, you don't deserve to be here. And then when you get there to the counter table, the dude asks you, how much extra garlic, yasai, which is just vegetables, do you want? Oh, and the amount of extra fat do you want? And I said the smaller amount for all of them. And that is what it looks like, but I had a smaller amount of vegetables and fat and stuff like that. Okay, and he's checking out the soup. The soup, the main appeal of ramen. This is classic Japanese guy who looks thin, but he eats shit that's really bad for you. And the noodles are fucking massive. Fuck, that looks good. So, on this stream, I often talk about how what's impressive about Japanese food is that it's not like the Michelin 3-star places. It's that you can go to any convenience store and buy just a piece of 100 yen sandwich or something that would be just absolute dog shit food in America, but somehow it tastes good in Japan. So it's the floor is much higher than the ceiling. The ceiling is also high, but the floor is extremely high. That's often the best part of Japanese food culture. This is a situation in which I'm willing to make a fucking exception. This ramen is absolute dog shit. The noodles are thick. I like that, and you get a bunch of meat, and I like the garlic and eating moyashi and stuff like that. The bean sprouts and shit. That's all fine, okay. But the fucking soup, it just tastes like they took a bunch of pork fat and they just dumped some soy sauce into it and called it a day. It has no complexity to it. And also after you eat it, you feel like shit, of course, but that's sort of a given. The broth is just bad. This is probably the most unhealthy thing you can eat in Japan, Jiro-style ramen. And it's often been called feed for pigs. As in, if you are going here and stuffing your mouth with this shit, then you're basically a disgusting fucking animal. Honestly, I hadn't eaten lunch, and I ate around 4 p.m., so I could handle the 250 grams of noodles pretty easily. Also, I said that the last time I had eaten Jiro-style ramen in 2010, I had to immediately shit, and I went back to the dorm and just, like, shat out, like, a stream of oil out of my asshole. So that didn't happen, so that was good. Because I was worried that I was, like, gonna have to take a shit in the train station or something. But at least it didn't give me the runs. That counts for something. But the thing is that because the standard food experience in Japan is so good in the first place, like, there's really no reason to go to a place like Jiro-style ramen unless you really want to, like, fuck up your arteries. That's my conclusion. Japanese food tends to be healthy, so if you really want something that's, like, maximum unhealthy, it's a good place to get that. But besides that, I wouldn't recommend it. I would probably die trying to eat that amount nowadays. Did you increase the amount that you ate during pregnancy? Or is that just cope for women who want to eat fried chicken in the first place? Gotta eat for 2! The baby wants the KFC and the pickle-flavored ice cream. It only increased it by 300 calories. And you call yourself an American? That's pathetic. That's like a bag of chips. Honestly, I'm kind of ashamed to think that you're representing our country. Eating for 2 is a myth. The way Americans eat, we're already eating for like 3, whether we're pregnant or not. That's how you get, like, 600-pound people who are, like, literally 3 people's worth of weight. Not babies, like 3 or 4 grown adults. Body positivity movement is fucking nuts. 400-pound chicks insisting they're totally fine and healthy. The body positivity movement right now is in shambles because they're all on Ozempic now, so nobody actually wants to be fat anymore. Once they realized there was a easy drug that they could just get on and no longer be fat, they all took it, so... It was just a coping mechanism. We already knew that. The era of fat is ending. It never began in Japan. But I did see some fat people walking around. I feel like Kansai, there's more fat people than there in Tokyo. Tokyo is just like giga thin city. Kansai, you have slightly more fat culture going on. There's some thick ones here and there. Especially depending on the area of Tokyo. There are some places where you're just walking around in Tokyo and the only people you see are like salarymen, tired salarymen, and all the girls look like they came out of like the local fashion catalog, and how thin they are and how they're all wearing like the latest trends in terms of fashion. Tokyo is fashionable and straight-laced folks, yes. Osaka is for the degenerates. Kobe is probably closer to the Tokyo vibe than it is to the Osaka vibe, even though they're really close. The old men work and their daughters buy the fashion. It's a vicious cycle. The old men work, then they go to the cabaret club. They give money to the women who are forced to buy new clothes because it's part of their job. And then the women take that money and buy more clothes, but then they also go to the host club because they're stressed out. And then waste their money there. And then they go into debt and become soapland girls. And then the old men go there as well and get a hand job. It's like the water cycle. It's beautiful in its efficiency. I think this is too much forehead. The hostesses who are trying to get through university but need to buy makeup and dresses for work, so they end up pissing away their funds. The entire host club, hostess club, soap industry is all designed to squeeze money upward, like pretty much any industry, but because it's like a semi-illegal, it's in that gray zone between illegal and non-illegal, it's much easier to be, completely abuse your workers and stuff. Also, if these girls were going to an American university, no amount of host club work would allow them to pay for their tuition. So they should be glad that they can still even pay a part of their tuition because they're going to a Japanese university. I wonder if going to university even helps getting a job at this point. Everybody goes to the fucking university nowadays. Half the uni girls here start an OnlyFans. At least the hostess club girls are gonna deal with the ugly salarymen in person instead of hiring some like Filipino to run their account for them. Not for liberal arts shit. In Japan, there's this whole like shinsotsu culture, which means like newly graduated. So I don't know how it is in Japan right now, but there's all these things that are like these universities called Efudan Daigaku, which are like F ranking universities that just sort of exist. Because Japanese youth population is continuously decreasing. Basically, anybody can get into a university if they have the money. I mean, you're just a customer, right? If you're a university student, you're not actually producing something. So, I don't know how helpful it is. There's no, like, selection process behind, like, going to a university unless you got into Harvard or something, right? So, I don't know if it represents anything besides the fact that your parents have enough money to send you, or you went into a lot of debt. Because both of my parents have PhDs, there basically was no universe in which I wasn't going to college, unless I was like going to be adamant about not wanting to go to college. So neither of them even considered not sending me to college, but my degree has helped me exactly like 0%. So who the fuck knows? And that's pretty average outcome, right? And that was when college cost way less than it does right now in 2005 or so. Networking is all that matters in going to uni. I mean, why do you think I'm going to join my frat and get my ass paddled? I'm having Chad Thundercock fuck me in the asshole as part of a very non-homosexual initiation ritual, so that I get access to all the people who graduated from Kappa Phi Gamma in the past 50 years. And then they will hire me using their nepotism connections. And then I won't do any actual work. And society will get worse again because nobody is actually hiring based on meritocracy. This is such bullshit. It's all about networking, and I hate people, so rest in peace. Yes. The good thing about Japan is that everybody is kind of autistic, semi-autistic here, so while there are like a bunch of people who get to the top by networking, it's you can feel that it's weaker than it is in America. You know, Japanitism Central because they use trains so much. You're putting the kappas there, but it's actually pretty much true. Japanese train autists are like the pinnacle of autism actions. The most despised people in Japanese society. Kita! I thought that shit was a meme. It is not a meme. You're lucky in Japan. If you're in Japan, you never have to encounter these humans. Guys, get your LinkedIn ready and use IA. Do you not type AI to publish every day so they see you as someone with drive? And at that moment, I almost wanted to kill myself. I mean, if you can get any kind of job out of uni, I guess you're in the winning group. They make US trained autists look sane and wholesome. The most infamous video is the the Gaijin taco store owner versus the Toritetsu. For those of you who don't know this is the most infamous memifications. Dude on bike. Then all these Chigyu walk up to him as if they're going to beat his ass, but they're all too afraid. But there's enough of them that they feel courageous enough that they can scream at them. Sasugani yabe! So the Japanese trained autist, this is where they have to be like, the way they speak is except in these, they're trying to make the Yakuza screaming at you voice to make them sound intimidating, but they can only emit high-pitched sounds because, you know, they're fucking Chigyu, not Yakuza. And they're always trying to tough talk because there's usually a large group of them, so they suddenly feel safe because they're surrounded by their own. But if they're on their own, they can't say anything and they get terrified and they can just only mumble and shit. Didn't Japanese society unanimously come out in support of the dude? Not just this situation, but in literally every situation, Japanese trained autists are the most hated part of Japanese society. It has been this way for a long time because in Japan, trains are just a normal way in which people get around. They are a transportation method. So this large group of autistic losers screaming at you to get out of the way so they can take a photo of a train are just like a social ill that nobody wants to have to deal with. They are considered to be the lowest of the low. Nobody fucking likes them. Japanese trained autists are real. They can't hurt you physically, though. They also can't hurt you mentally because they're so pathetic. They'll try and scream and be angry at you. And if you just laugh at them, they'll be like, "Arr!" The most damage you'll get is the psychic damage from their smell, probably. They will destroy property around you, though. That is a problem. It's another one of the reasons why they're hated, because they will literally damage property, like cut down trees and stuff. There have been multiple occasions in which, like, a train is going through a certain location, and the autist will cut down, like, a tree so they can get a better angle of the shot. Like the tree in someone's yard. I imagine an American trained autist going to Japan and becoming the king of the trained autist by sheer size and body mass. Unfortunately, to become the king of the trained autist within the autist group, you're judged by things other than your physical abilities. You're judged by your ability to take photos of trains from extremely specific angles. They have like a whole guideline checklist of how you're supposed to take photos of trains. You're not just supposed to take the photo of the train from any angle and the way you want to. If you don't follow their like guidelines, they're like, this doesn't count, this is a bad photo, and you won't get your street cred among them. Hence the autism. Meanwhile, your credibility among the autists has no sort of meaning on people outside of that community. So the photos thing is universal in the train community, by the way, is it? So I actually have a saved image of the train autist guidelines. The Toritetsu photo guide. See, this is a non-ironic an unironic guide of all the different things that you have, a checklist. Is the pantograph overlapping with the power lines? Are the power lines up front overlapping with anything? Are there any open windows? Are there any people sticking their hands out of the window? Is there any, like, artificial objects around the end of the train? Are there any ropes or grass around the wheels? Are the wipers properly symmetrical for between left and right wipers? Are there any reflections in the window? These are all things you're not supposed to have. You have to take it exactly from this specific angle. These are all other problems. And they have, like, specific terminology for when, like, you have some sort of overlaps that you're not supposed to have, etc., etc. They literally only want the photo from, like, a very specific angle. Again, autism is it's a very serious disease. It's a tragedy. We should not celebrate autists as being, like, neurodivergent. They're incapable of functioning in normal human society. I say this as someone with Asperger's. The very existence of the autism spectrum individual is a drain on social resources. We should not celebrate their neurodivergence at all. Every once in a while, there'll be one that can, like, do something that's amazing with their different mental state, but 99% of the time, we just use our energy for completely worthless shit, like taking photos of trains. Aren't there groups of trolls that mess up their photos? I mean, you don't even need to be a troll. All you need to be is just, like, in the train and then, like, open the window or something, and they're like, no, my photo is ruined! I can see this guy's hand coming out of the window. No! I think someone pasted, like, a political election poster or something. And that, like, drove all the train photographers crazy. At what point does TISM cross the line to fetish territory? At least fetishists are doing it because it makes them horny. It's not really clear what it does for the autistic train photographers. It provides them with, like, a sense of, I guess, social worth within their extremely closed, stupid social system. It's how they, like, assert dominance over other train autists. It resonates with their identity. They do it because it resonates with their identity. That sounds like something that the Major would say. Bato would be like, Major, what do you think about the train autists? Why do they do it? And then she goes into like a long-winded monologue about the ghost and the internet and stuff like that. And how people stripped of their identity can only reestablish their identity through proximity to the fetish objects or whatever. And then the Tachikoma comes in and is like, I think trains are cool! Look! The Tachikoma, there's like a short scene in which the Tachikoma is like, my ancestor! The train! He's just like me. I don't think I'm much of a Ghost in the Shell fan, but every once in a while I realize that it's like invaded my psyche on a much deeper level than I acknowledge. I also like how in pretty much all the porn of the Major, everybody just ignores the fact that she has like an android body and they just have her get pregnant all the time. Where they're just like, the whole robot part is irrelevant to my needs as a man. In my mind, she has fully functioning ovaries. She's not just hardware. The Major is made for brain hack, mind break, doll fetish, big titty impregnation, lactation, humiliation. That's just common sense. Is there going to be plot development for the Virginia saga? No, there is not. Don't ask such a silly question. Don't be foolish. There will be no such thing. Truly a cursed existence. Virginia is like the Wile E. Coyote, and sex is like the Roadrunner. I don't think I need any more explanation on how the system works. You might as well just be asking, when is she gonna catch the Roadrunner? She's been trying hard enough. It's about time, right? She deserves to be rewarded for her effort. The answer is no, she does not. What tablet do you use? I use a XP Pen Deco Pro MW. This is the wireless version of a screenless tablet offered by XP Pen. I recommend using XP Pen instead of Wacom because Wacom has kind of become like the Apple of drawing tablets, where they've just become overpriced without offering much better performance. Wacom over here, it's cheap enough. XP Pen is cheaper. I say this as someone who used Wacom and then bought a very expensive Wacom tablet. A screenless one for about $500 and had it break on me in like a year. Their packaging especially reminds me of Apple. They have like really high quality packaging that like it feels just like absolute A-class shit. And the tablet feels heavy and weighty and like, oh, it's like, oh, you can tell this is a luxury product, and then it like breaks immediately and you're like, oh fuck, I've been tricked. So yeah, I would recommend buying XP Pen. I am anti-Apple, anti-Nintendo, anti-Wacom. These are corporations, I think, that pretend to be high-quality luxury products, but then they actually give you like relatively poorly manufactured cheap shit. My Intuos 4 is still alive, but I bought it before the 2010s. So that was the Intuos 4 is what I also had, and it lasted me for quite a while. And that was like the end of when Wacom was a high-quality product. After the Intuos 4 is when it starts to go downhill, and I can't imagine how bad it is right now, but this also coincides with the other products becoming better, so the luxury products when every other person you know has one, well, that as well, but every other person being stupid doesn't change the fact that Apple can charge, you know, thousands of dollars for whatever, a piece of cloth to wipe your screen. I've been looking at Huion. I've heard that Huion is fine, but for some reason I bought a Huion tablet and it wouldn't properly pair with my computer. I'm not sure what the problem was, but it just didn't work for some reason. Anyways, the XP Pen Deco Pro I'm using is literally a copy in terms of the type of hotkeys and shit it has of the Wacom. It has like the roller wheels and stuff that Wacom had. It does everything the Wacom does just fine. I like how XP Pen feels. I think it's like half designed in Japan and half designed in China, so... Japan being, like, Japanese electronics just being better at everything. That time period is over and you have to be careful now. But I still would trust Japanese products slightly more than I would trust other companies, though, at this point. It's not like the 90s in which, like, if you just bought something Japanese, you were good for life. Your Yamaha motor will last for your next 70 years or anything. I think the Japanese corporations, their quality has fallen off a bit because they've become larger and they have to, like, supply a larger market. And also, that's bad business, but... It's still relatively reliable if you have the Japanese label applied. What a thing to say, I would still trust Japanese stuff more. Yeah, but the manufacturing is done as China, right? So it all comes down to how much quality control is being done. When it comes to like cheaper products, I think Japanese company products are way more reliable. Like stuff in the like $10 or less range. I tried to buy a bunch of car peripheral parts made. They're all made in China, but I bought it at like a local auto supply store or something, and they broke when I was attaching them to the car in the parking lot, like within 3 seconds, and I was like, holy shit. And this happened multiple times. I can't remember which auto supplier it was, but I was just like, I'm never gonna shop here again. This is fucking insane. I don't know what kind of Chinese factory they're supplying this shit from, but this seems like some sort of self-parody. Like, shit would literally break as I was installing it in the parking lot. China gives zero fucks, except like your high-quality products a lot of times are being made in China as well. You just have to have like the Japanese factory supervisor be there and forcing the Chinese people to not cut corners is really the only difference. So if it's an American corporation and they're not there doing quality control, then you're gonna get fucked in terms of quality. China loves to gatekeep their good stuff. I'm sure there's like high quality Chinese brands as well, but I still wouldn't trust them even if they were high quality, because pretty much anything you buy is just like, it's like a percentage of failure rate, right? This is how they actually track this shit as someone who is working in Toyota. It's not like something is going to break 100% or it's not going to break 100%. It's like out of so many batches that are made in a lot of a factory production, like some percentage is going to be defective, and it just becomes a question of whether you hit one of the defective ones or not, and then whether you can get their like customer support to actually replace it when you call them up when your shit immediately breaks if it's an expensive object. That's sort of what you're paying for. So any kind of product reviews for being like, oh, it works fine for me, is like, yeah, okay, you were lucky, right? I say this as if it's not a 100% thing, but there were things that 100% did break, 100%, all of the time. The most obvious one was the Xbox 360, made by an American company, manufactured in India, probably designed by Indian engineers. That was a product that broke 100% of the time, often within like several hundred hours of use. Which tells you that they basically didn't test their product at all. Shit is insane. It cost them like billions of dollars, probably, if you look at like the total effect. It definitely cost hundreds of millions just to replace all the consoles that they had to replace. My console never red ring, but the disc tray died. Pretty rare. You probably only used it so many hours, I'm guessing. If you got above, I feel like 500 or 600 hours, your console would red ring pretty much 100%. It wasn't like, oh, this was a bad batch or something like that. It was in like the core engineering. I believe the soldering they were using was like the lead would fuck up or something. I can't remember. The disc reader is probably just dust, and you could just get it like fixed by having it cleaned and shit. But because it wasn't the red ring of death, it wouldn't be automatically just be like a free repair for you. The good thing about the red ring of death was because it was so widespread, Microsoft was basically forced to, deal with it for so many people that at least when you got it, they would immediately like have it fixed because they had to acknowledge the problem. For all the other type of common problems that the Xbox 360 had, they could get away with just being like, oh, it's past warranty, So I had a red ring of death on one of my 360s, and I got that fixed. And I don't know if they gave me a new 360 or is like the same 360 or whatever. But, everybody got their red ring of death. But then, the 360 broke later from, I believe, disc tray not reading the disc because of dust and shit like that. And that was not fixed for free, I think. I had to pay them, $100 or something. Which in terms of console repairs still isn't that bad, I guess. Pink tinted glasses. I remember how PS2s burned through disc readers like they grew on trees. My PS2, both of them are still functional, actually. And then when I can't remember what broke, but when my American PS2 broke, it was way past the warranty, and then Sony still fixed it. This was back in the day when Sony was still incredibly fucking based. I doubt they would be like that right now because it's become an American company. But there was a long period in which Sony was still operating like a Japanese company where nothing is ever supposed to break ever, and they were like, oh, well, of course we'll fix it for you for free. My cousin pawned my PS2 for crack. It happens. The question, of course, is what quality of crack was he able to obtain? That reminds me of the bike comic in which the bike cuck guy is like, my bike got stolen, but the guy who stole my bike probably needed my bike more than me, so the total happiness in the world increased. Do you guys know about this comic? It's like an infamous meme on 4chan. It would be like, my PS2 got stolen by my cousin to buy crack, but my cousin probably needed crack more than I needed to play video games, so the total amount of happiness in the world increased. I mean, you can't argue with the whole, like, the guy's addicted to crack, right? You can be addicted to video games, but you're not addicted to video games more than your cousin is addicted to crack. It wasn't enough. Retard got robbed and never got the dime bag crack. Yes. That seems like a common occurrence. So the answer is the total amount of happiness in the world did not increase. Also, even if you become happy by using crack, you're not going to be happy like 20 minutes later. I don't know how much time it takes for your crack high to wear off, but it's extremely quick, so I don't really gel with his comics, but he seems like a chill dude. For those of you who don't know what I'm talking about, if I look up Bike Cuck Comic, it immediately shows up. Actually, the first you get is a fucking Reddit post questioning whether it's a lost reference, because everything has to be a lost reference now. Actually, the original Bike Cuck comic is not showing up, which makes me wonder if he's deleted it from the internet. It's not showing up in Google image search immediately. I think he's been bullied off the internet, at least regarding the original comic. That's pretty funny. Lost in 2026? I mean, anything can be lost at this point, right? I found it quick. Maybe it's Google's fault. Shen Comics is still here on the internet. Yeah, I know he's here, but I thought that maybe the Bike Cuck comic specifically was gone. Shen Bike comic. Maybe the cuck is giving me incorrect search results, because it's just people are going to be making fun of him. The cuck is the key word here. So, the reason why people were saying that this was loss is because it's one person, vertical line serves as the other person, one person, I guess something here, and this serves as the bed. I don't know, that seems a little, this is more of a vertical line. I don't think this counts as loss. I think they're trying to force the loss too hard. Pretty much anything that has 4 panels immediately just becomes a lost meme. Do you have an accent when speaking Japanese? Like, do you think native Japanese can detect that you're not a native? When I speak in Japanese, my entire speech pattern is just me mumbling and saying, ah, hi. The key here is to say, ah, before everything you say. I try as hard as possible not to speak with anyone. So, it's unclear what their opinion is of me. Talking to people is too much? It really is. Whoever invented this whole communication thing, fuck them. They fucking suck. Lots of ah, eh, and hissing noises. It's impolite if you don't start every single sentence that you speak by first saying ah, hai, wakarimashita, ah. If you don't start by mumbling a bit to show that you lack confidence in your conversational skills, you might come off as aggressive. I say this as sarcasm, but it's like half true. Japanese form of communication is primarily done through committing ritualistic suicide of cutting open your stomach when you have done dishonorable deed. Everything else is just extra. Japanese man, we must commit ritualistic suicide. Japanese woman must walk 3 steps behind samurai man and be delicate oriental flower. Yay, yay, yay. Is Persona 4 the best JRPG of all time? I feel like in terms of like providing you with the experience of giving you a simulated version of how you feel like society should be, in that everyone should be like sucking your dick all the time. I feel like it's one of the best games ever. It's a 6 out of 10. It's kind of tedious. People legit be like, these are my real friends. Nanako-chan is my real sister. I'm gonna go to Japan. The best JRPG of all time wouldn't have randomly generated dungeons. Ball, wake up, uncle. Well, if you're saying that Persona 4 isn't the best JRPG of all time, I'm just gonna go older than that. So I'd be even more of an uncle. Adachi is literally me. Adachi is me if I actually cared enough to commit pushing people into TV. I can't remember. Can you find the shadow versions of like other people in the TV? Or can you only find your own shadow version? Is there a way for me to go into the TV and have sex with evil versions of women? Because that seems like a great way to use the TV. Persona 4's cultural relevance is just people going, was he right? No, he was wrong, over and over. That's completely wrong. Persona 4 has massive cultural relevance, way more than 5 in a lot of other JRPGs. The obvious proof of this is as soon as that song just started playing, everybody immediately knew what game it was from and knew the fucking lyrics, and it was like, you're a fashion, and you know every single thing that I'm talking about. The fact that everybody in chat can immediately have the conversation of the various elements of Persona 4, that alone disproves the fact that it didn't have any huge cultural impact. It was the weeaboo entrance game for like an entire generation of like loser nerds who are like, I might be a loser in America, but if I go to Japan, I'll be the main character. There's all those infamous photos of like the black nerds all dressing up as the Persona 4 characters and shit. That's why I'm saying that it might be the best JRPG of all time, because ultimately JRPGs are about wish fulfillment fantasies, and Persona 4 is one of the more powerful wish fulfillment fantasies out there. At no point is it ever like, you're a fucking loser. It's always like, you're awesome the entire time. Unless you start making mistakes for your social link multiple choice questions. That's why I had to play Persona with the using the strategy guide to get maximum correct answers when I was associating with people. Because if I started answering the questions as myself, then I would just be like playing on hard mode. It would be like, hey, Anon-kun, do you think that I should do this and this? And if I'd be like, I'll just be myself, and I'll answer this the way I feel. And then it would be like immediately minus 10 points. You have made the girl angry when you called her ugly. I'm like, why? I was just being honest. And it started to become a painful reminder that I'm socially inept in real life, and I am not Narukami-kun. I got into it late because I had a GameCube, LOL. I got into the Tales bandwagon instead. The problem with Tales is it's built for women because they realized their primary consumer was females. It's not exactly like male gaze coded. It used to be, and then they realized that there are like way more female players than there were male players. I was surprised when I watched JoJo's Bizarre Adventure after playing the game and I realized personas are stands and Inaba's Moria. I mean, not everything is a JoJo reference. I know this is hard for JoJo consumers to understand, but there is small Japanese towns exist outside of JoJo universe. That is a thing. There's like 10,000 other things that you could list as like much more obvious references, points of references for Persona, such as like Twin Peaks and stuff. I mean, Velvet Room is like a direct reference to the Red Room of Twin Peaks, right? And they did like small town high school drama before 4, but Persona 4, Deadly Premonition. What else am I forgetting? I guess Silent Hill. They're all like Twin Peaks core. Japan loves Twin Peaks. There is a whole YouTube series dedicated to explaining why things are not JoJo references, LMAO. A lot of times when things are JoJo references, Araki specifically name drops them, like Michelangelo statues and stuff. Japan has a lot of small town energy, so it merges very well with shit like Twin Peaks. People in a small town, enclosed environment, a murder happens, and then lots of interpersonal relationships are weird, and then also weird supernatural shit happen, is a very deeply connected concept to the Japanese mythology and the living experience of being in Japan, where you have all these very small towns surrounded by forests, and the forest areas in the mountains are kind of like considered to be supernatural areas of the gods. And if you go into them, you might get eaten by a bear or something like that. This results in a very high utilization of Twin Peaks style storytelling. It's a very good blend. I can't remember the PC-98 video game I watched. It was definitely inspired by Twin Peaks. Yeah, I think there was a lot of like eroge and stuff inspired that as well. So there's like an entire thread of Japanese culture which comes from the combination of Agatha Christie, like whodunit, we're all in an abandoned manor, somebody gets murdered type situations. And then you combine that with like the J-horror elements that have always existed in the Japanese environment, such as like supernatural shit like ghosts and deities and weird shrines and shit. And then you get shit like Twin Peaks, and they all kind of merge together into stuff like Persona. The most obvious Twin Peaks video game, of course, is Deadly Premonition, but it's a lot of other stuff are just sort of Twin Peaks adjacent. What the hell happens in Twin Peaks? I've never seen it. Surreal stuff. I've never seen it either. I hear it shits the bed after Lynch gets fired. Yeah. Well, that's season 2, right? Or wait, how does it work? Does he get fired during the first season, the initial run, and then he also gets fired during the second season? I can't remember. Or does he have control over the entire second season or not? He came back from the last stretch of season 2. So does he start season 2, gets fired halfway through, and then comes back for the end of season 2? Also, yesterday when I got back from eating extremely unhealthy ramen, I was planning to go to the Mr. Donuts at my local train station to change the flavor in my mouth, even though it would result in me eating more needless calories and thus further destroying my arteries. So I went to the Mr. Donuts and there was a fucking massive line that stretched outside the store around the corner. It was probably about like 60 people long. And they were all females, of course, because, you know, men have to work. And I was trying to figure out what people were lining up for. It seemed like they had some kind of like Chiikawa adjacent, but not exactly Chiikawa promoted thing. I wonder if I can look it up right now. I'm guessing that was what it was. I think I can just look up Mr. Donuts limited time menu. I think this might be it. Mochurin. Notice how they have like weird faces and stuff. I think it just went on sale, like yesterday. I think they're slightly soft donuts. It's not Chiikawa. I just thought it was Chiikawa because there were so many people, but I think it's just like a normal soft donut that they weren't offering until recently, or it came back. Yeah, it is a whole Instapic thing. For any feminists who want to argue that women are oppressed in Japanese society, my only argument against this would be just look at any kind of like consumer activity that takes up a bunch of time and money and stuff and see the ratio between men and women. It will be 99.9% women. Men in Japan do not have the time to stand in line at a donut shop, and they don't have time. They also don't have the money either because their wife has control over the household finances. The exceptions to this are the Chigyu that are lining up at like the model train store or something. They're all probably receiving allowances from their mommies. I tried Mr. Donuts in Japan. It was okay. Far from the best donuts I've ever had. Japanese, the Mr. Donuts are like Japanese style donuts, as in a lot of like the heavier flavors and the oils and the salt and stuff have been toned down so that you can eat like 10 of them easily. This of course makes them more popular to females. Not even Japanese scalpers. Japanese scalpers are not Japanese, they're Chinese generally. And that's their primary job, so... If you go to like some Pokemon card sale, then yes, it will be full of scalpers. Chigyu at the train store and the Gyudon chains. Yeah, but Gyudon chains don't really do anything that causes you to get in a line, though, I feel. The Jiro style, ironically, those ramen places are a good situation where you can see the Chigyu getting in lines. The Marugame near me has a bolognese bowl right now, and I cringe. That's just like peak Japanese. We'll put some weird approximation of Italian cooking that if an Italian actually ate, they'd be like, what the fuck is this? Japanese love like fake Italian. Bolognese. Of course, those Italians that are complaining about Japanese Italian food, when they've been in Japan for like 10 years, eventually they all just end up eating at Saizeriya. They stop caring and they realize the superiority of Japanese food engineering. Even if it doesn't taste anything like proper Italian food, they're like, no, this is good. Because it is good. Anybody who has had Napolitan, which is not Napolitan and to any degree, knows that it's just like ketchup cooked noodles, and yet it tastes really good, so... Japan is just a great country if you want a carb load. I know that, like, I shit on Americans for getting all fat and eating fatty food and being fat all the time, but if you actually want to be fat in Japan, there's a shit ton of options where you can just get, like, a pound of noodles. The bell peppers don't belong in there. I disagree. If you can't handle bell peppers in your Napolitan, you're a fucking cuck. Here we go. Time to eat 2,300 grams of spaghetti in 10 minutes. I could eat that. Easy. Oh, I'm glad. Look, this is the Japanese core right here. You get the asparagus, and you fucking get this tiny-ass fucking salad right next to this death level of carbs. If you eat your vegetables first, not even this amount of carbs will destroy you. Put the fucking Xenogears song back on, fool. Shevat. I love Xenogears, but I don't want to replay it again. That's too much. Don't worry, Hystrixia, you're eating for two. Your baby needs the 5,000 calories of carbs. That's a lot. This is peak American opinion. It's like, that's easy. He only has 10 minutes, though. That's what makes it hard. I think a lot of people could eat this much if they had, like, 2 hours. Why do you always reference Japan? Because I'm in Japan right now. That's why. Because I just moved to Japan from America 6 months ago. So I'm being reminded on a daily basis that Japan is superior to America. Honestly, if we're going to be 100%, if we're going to have a moment of honesty, I was walking back from the grocery store about 2 days ago, and I live in an area where there's a bunch of kids, and there were all these kids, the sun was setting, and there were all these kids, like, playing soccer and shit, and, like, running around in circles in front of me. And I was like, man, there's a lot of kids here, despite the whole, like, declining population and shit. And I just got, like, overwhelmed with, like, a real sense of, like, man, you know what? Japan is gonna be fine. Japanese society is really holding up. Everything's gonna be okay. They have a lot of challenges and stuff that they're gonna have to figure out. But all in all, everything's gonna be okay here. Which is a emotion that I have not felt living in America in, like, I don't know, 10 years. At no point in the last 10 years have I been walking around in America and be like, you know what? America's gonna be fine. I have not felt that in any way. They just released a census, didn't they? I don't know. Did the population have any kind of recovery, or did it go down again? The birth rate? It doesn't really matter, honestly. There was a drop, as usual, right? It's just going to continuously drop. Literally no country on this planet who has an industrialized economy has a birth rate in recovery. Nothing is over 2. It's just a question of, like, how precipitous the drop-off is going to be. It's mostly because 30% of the population is in the Tokyo region. I mean, that shouldn't necessarily affect the birth rate, though. It's going to lead to problems in the local areas where they can't have enough services. And, like, some small-ass villages surrounded by mountains are going to have to get sacrificed toward the increased urbanization around Tokyo, but ultimately, that's, sacrifices are going to have to be made. It's funny how there's, like, still YouTubers or, like, people that are trying to get on the bandwagon of, like, why is Japanese population decreasing, trying to farm that shit for content, when it's literally every fucking country in the fucking planet. But, like, they're still trying to farm the, oh, Japan is losing population, it's gonna disappear shit, like it's still, like, 2016 or something. It's like, have you not been paying attention? We're all gonna disappear. The Koreans first, of course. Any country that's maintaining their population are just doing it by importing immigrants who still have children at their immigrant country, third world standards, and then within one generation, those people stop having that many kids as well because they've been affected by whatever industrialized economy disease they have it. Korea is, like, completely on a different level from all the other countries that also are losing population, because they have, like, the added layer of, like, men and women hate each other. Like, even in our current environment, it's pretty hard to reach birth rates of, like, 0.7 or whatever. People truly have to be choosing not to fuck to reach those levels. All is to be consumed by the Great Sun Explosion. I'm old enough to remember my childhood in which people were constantly talking about how the world is overpopulated and we're in, like, grave danger if the third world countries keep on having kids. There won't be enough food, blah, 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 blah. We have to, be airdropping condoms into African villages. And then there would be people who'd be like, oh, but it's the first world countries that use more resources. Why does it have to be about the third world countries having less kids, blah, blah, blah. And now within my lifetime, all the talking heads are now being like, have children! Have children now! Oh my god, there's not enough people! Oh my god! What are we gonna do? It's like, what happened to the whole resources thing, dumbass? I thought you were fucking terrified that there was gonna be too many people on the planet. What's the current global population? Corridors of time, baby. Current. Spoiler, they never cared about the resources. We currently have 8.3 billion people live worldometer. Oh no! Will we reach 9 billion? The global population is projected to reach 9 billion around the year 2037. Not if all the Korean feminist women can help. Not only do capitalists not care about resources or the environment or humanity, they don't even care about like long-term planning. They can't even think more than like 5 to 10 years ahead. They're literally just completely consumed by whatever business cycle they're caught in this case AI right now. Asking them to be like, well, so what about the whole population thing compared to our concerns in the 70s is just like too far above their head. It's just going over their head completely. Half of those people will be Indian or Chinese. They won't. China has already reached its like peak population and it's rapidly crashing. China has a lower birth rate than Japan and it's actually close to Korea. They have huge imbalance between men and women, which is a very bad situation if you have fewer women. And that's not even counting all like their economy problems they're having. And then India has also, I don't think they've peaked it, but they also have the downward trend as well. I mean, half of the population is already Indian and Chinese, but it's not going to last like that forever. Who will it be instead? Who knows? It doesn't really matter. They're not peaking, they're just exporting people so their numbers are stable. I believe Indian industrialization has reached the point where the birth rate is now starting to fall. Indian birth rate. India birth rate for 2023 was 16.5, 1.16 decline. 2022 was 16.34. It's declining a little bit. This is live births per 1,000 people. That's a weird number. Pro tip, don't look what is India's average IQ. I feel like my entire education cycle has been like mirroring the arc in which first we learned in the 90s that like everything Western civilization did was great and it was created by great white people. And then in the 90s, we learned that the great white people did a lot of bad things, and colonialism was bad. I guess that's colonialism bad came in like the 2000s and stuff. First, you got like slavery and the Holocaust were bad. We should feel guilty about that. And then it's like colonialism as a whole was bad. We should feel guilty about that. And everything done by white people was wrong. That was when I was in college. I'm glad I was in college in 2005 instead of like 2020. Even in 2005, the liberal bias was pretty hard. And now we're in the age of the internet in which we have all of this information that is showing all the right-wing chuds might be right about a lot of things that will make the, college professors very uncomfortable, such as, I don't know, when the colonialists leave Africa, suddenly the country becomes just like a massive garbage-filled ghetto. But we shouldn't ask why, because it might lead to inconvenient truths. India's main problems right now are arguably deep government corruption plus deep societal divides. Again, that's like pretty much every country. But India has like the extra bonus of having like the caste system, which isn't going to help. But like the IQ thing is one of where it really starts to become uncomfortable. I grew up in a period in which everybody was like super into being like, we have to save Africa. We're going to feel so good about ourselves when we save Africa by inviting Bono to our Live Aid concert. And now nobody fucking talks about saving Africa. The only time when people talk about like genocide is Africa is when they want to talk about genocide in another country, and they're like, "Hey, all you liberals, why are you talking about genocide in Gaza when there's genocide happening in South Sudan, huh?" That type of shit. Anyways, IQ is a pretty shitty measurement for measuring, like, I don't know, general abilities and stuff as well, so I don't know how much you should trust that. Ultimately, you just need to ask yourself, do I want to go and live in India? And if you actually watch a video of anybody going on vacation in India and exposing themselves to various aspects of Indian society, most people are like, no, I don't want to live in India. I was doing my pull-ups in a Japanese park yesterday, and an irresponsible owner had not cleaned up after their dog, and there was like a small pile of dog shit within my view, and it had been so long since I had seen like any kind of poop that wasn't from one of the many crows that I found just the visually looking at this pile of dog shit to just be very offensive. And I was like, damn, that motherfucker didn't clean up after their dog. How dare you? Now, think about if you're in India and cows are sacred animals and they're allowed to walk around your cities and they're literally constantly shitting at all times. And if you're not looking down at the ground, you might step in a pile of dog shit at any point. Or not dog shit. Well, dog shit as well. They also have dogs everywhere as well. Unleashed dogs as well. So you get a nice variety between the cow shit and the dog shit. And if you're trying to make sure you don't step in cow shit and dog shit while you're walking and looking down at your feet, you're going to get run over by one of the 10,000 cars that is completely ignoring any kind of traffic signals, if there even are traffic signals. Don't forget that babies with horrible birth defects are worshipped. I was watching some kind of YouTube documentary on bus drivers in Bangladesh. I'm sure some of you have probably seen the exact video I'm talking about, but bus drivers in Bangladesh, the buses are like they're all fucking busted up, not just because they're old, but because all of the bus drivers drive like insane lunatics. And this is because the bus company who is leasing the bus releases all of the bus drivers at the same time, and all the passengers get onto the first bus that gets to the stop, and then the bus after them gets zero customers. So basically, every bus driver is racing the other bus drivers to get all the customers, and they're in a literal race. So obviously, this causes like constant accidents. The buses are crashing into each other, etc., etc., etc. And I just got thinking about the Krogans in Mass Effect. You know how in Mass Effect the lore of the Krogans is that they were just like gigantic frogs on their individual planet, and they were just in constant wars, murdering each other, and then having like 10 trillion babies, and then murdering all the other babies and stuff. And then when spacefaring technology got there, and the Krogans got access to nuclear weapons, they just started immediately like annihilating each other with nuclear weapons and stuff. I was just thinking about like the Bangladeshi bus drivers and how none of the technology that these people are using is stuff that were invented or manufactured by them. In other words, the society didn't actually earn any of this technology. It was provided to them by like foreign influences, like a fucking alien landing on the planet. Like, they didn't have to go through the stages of society in which you would normally have to go through to have access to creating an internal combustion engine and like a bus and shit like that, right? And because the society didn't go through the stage in which they would have where they would have to mature to the point in which they would create these buses in the first place, even if they have the technology of the bus, they don't have like the social technology of understanding that it's extremely inefficient to release all these buses at the same time. And they don't have like the social technology of people to be like, it's actually really bad for me to just like get on the first bus because this bus driver might fucking crash, and everybody driving super fast is dangerous and it might cause people to crash. Like, people cannot behave in a civilized manner because none of the outside technology that was given to them is related to the social technology that needs to be in place for it to function in the first place. It's like an extremely awkward conversation for anybody who went to a liberal college in the early 2010s, because it's basically like going back to British colonial arguments and like the white man's burden and shit like that. And yet there's so much evidence that third world countries don't actually have like the social advancement required to handle a lot of this like Western shit, that it becomes hard to ignore what you see in front of you. Kind of what happened to Congo during their first meeting with the Portuguese. Congo embraced Christ just to get weapons, just to ramp up their slave operations to sell to the Portuguese. I mean, that's slightly different because the Portuguese are also contributing to the bad parts of society right there because they're buying the slaves, right? But as someone who went to college in like 2005, we were basically told that all of the social ills in the world were primarily caused by the British and French colonial setups, and I think that's true to some degree. But the French have still have a colonial operation set up, but a lot of the British shit has been out of Africa and very in India and stuff for a long time, long enough to say that it's not really their responsibility anymore, and yet shit hasn't necessarily gotten better. And eventually, even the more left-wing leading people have to start being like, wait, am I being tricked? Like, there was a YouTuber who was from South Africa the other day showing a video about if you just go to Google Maps and you check the streets of Johannesburg at the different points in which those Google Maps photos were taken, the infrastructure just starts to fucking crumble over the course of like 10 years. It goes from like a slightly well-kept but somewhat dirty street in Johannesburg to like the entire wall has been taken apart and the bricks have been stolen and stuff like that. Now attempting to build a Hindu supremacist coalition to unite the portion of the population at the cost of alienating the minorities, especially Muslims. I mean, they have to do something to create a coalition, right? India, like many other countries, is actually too big to have like one unified state. And they wouldn't have a unified state if they didn't have British colonialism in the first place. So they need to have some kind of like Hindu nationalism, or else, nothing's gonna work. Brazilians would like a word. Come to Brazil. Americans can't talk shit about Brazilians because at least when Brazilian had a wannabe dictator try and implement autocracy so he could stay in power forever, the Brazilian Supreme Court and Brazilian people were able to stop that, whereas the Americans re-elected their dictators. Are they really dictators if they're elected? Well, you're not elected as a dictator, you just choose to stay there forever. Michael Jackson had a good time in Brazil. I'm pretty sure Michael Jackson could have a good time anywhere, considering like everybody treats him like royalty. Americans once again given the Fell For It Again award. More like Republican voters, I would say. Republican voters are the best Fell For It Again award people of all time. In fact, they never even notice that they've fallen for it usually, so I feel like the award doesn't really apply to them. I feel like the Fell For It Again award only applies if you have a moment of clarity in which you realize you've been duped by Reaganomics and that your life isn't going to get any better if the rich people don't have to pay as much taxes because the wealth is going to trickle down. But I don't think Republican voters have ever had the situation in which they're like, maybe trickle-down economics doesn't work. So I don't think they even get the Fell For It Again award because they don't even realize they've fallen for it. I feel bad for the sane Republicans. What little there are left, kind of. The problem is that the elements of the Republican Party that made the MAGA tards possible in the first place were always there in the Republican Party from the beginning, so I mean, the entire strategy was you create a coalition of a certain cultural aspect of people who aren't actually rich, and then you use that coalition to pass laws that benefit rich people, and that was like the entire Republican Party, especially like post-Reagan. But then Donald Trump found the cheat code in which he realized that he could just appeal directly to the cultural codes of the people, that so he didn't have to do all the whole like businesses being job creators, blah blah blah, that shit. He just went directly to the, we fucking hate minorities, we don't want Mexicans in our country, blah blah blah, and then suddenly he can take control of the Republican Party because he started saying the quiet part out loud. Maybe a two-party system isn't that good, huh? Yeah. Again, why I feel like Japan will be okay and America will not be. On the other hand, I wouldn't know what party I would vote for in Japan, because they all are pretty flawed in their different ways. In America, it's pretty obvious because one of the two parties is just so far out there in terms of how it does not benefit me in any way that, like, just voting for whichever party isn't the Republican Party is just a very normal thing to do. But in Japan, it's, if I was asked who I was going to vote for, I would have a legitimate difficulty deciding. I feel like it's unhealthy to just have the Liberal Democratic Party in Japan be in power forever. But if you ask me who I would vote as like an alternative to them, I don't know what I would do. You don't want to wear bright-ass orange? I mean, there's just a lot of Communist Party signs around here. The Communist Party is alive and well in Ashiya, Japan. I still get Communist Party mail, actually, in my aunt's mailbox. I think she voted Communist Party once. Not shocked, to be honest. I think the Kansai region has much more communism than Tokyo, and especially like the more conservative areas that are the basis of the Liberal Democratic Party. They're more in like the rice growing areas, the farmers and shit. So what if we just divided the planet in two and sent all the communists to one of the sides? We could build a wall between them. Communists, there aren't any real communists nowadays. The Japanese Communist Party is just like a left-wing party, and their primary concern is shit like, I don't know, anti-war stuff. There are very few people who actually have like well thought out manifestos of their political beliefs and shit. Nobody's actually like, I'm a communist, so I'm interested in redistribution of wealth. We're gonna collect the money from everybody and we're just gonna, pass it back out again. Nobody's actually talking about that shit. None of these quote-unquote Communist Party members are actual Marxists, Modern communists are communists until they suggest you do actual communist things. They're like culturally left political organizations that vote based on whatever culturally left political bullet point items are in the news right now. They're not about like actual communist, like Marxist concepts. If you actually went into your political movement talking about the alienation of the worker or something like that, I don't think you'd get many votes. Communism is just easy pickings for the next power grabber. If you mean that communism and the concept of redistribution of wealth just results in the person who has access to the wealth and gets to redistribute it, choosing to redistribute most of it to themselves, I mostly agree with that. But America is too far on the opposite end of the spectrum, and they don't even try and collect the wealth, i.e. tax rich people in the first place, which is also bad. There needs to be a balance in all things. Insert Thanos meme. If you leave capitalism completely unchecked, all you just get is money eternally flowing to the top. That's part of the reasons why Japanese society actually is so functional, is because it has very strong death taxes. Once a parent dies, you lose a huge chunk of whatever wealth they've accumulated. So that if you're just like a rich person and you don't work, even if your granddaddy was like a multi-millionaire within like 2 or 3 generations, that money is taken away by the state through taxes. So you actually have to do something with your fucking life, which is the opposite of the American system, in which if your granddaddy was a multi-millionaire, they can just continue to accumulate wealth. Even if you don't do shit, you just automatically get more and more money just based on the way the system works. If the person redistributing doesn't want to, someone who does will find their way to it eventually, but it's usually the first generation. Why wait to the, the generation after that? If you want to be a politician, what's the point of being a politician if you're not going to give yourself more money? Good, that way it's the government the one to inherit the money. That would work wonders in the West. I mean, it's not like Americans don't get taxed. American gets taxed plenty. It's just the rich that don't get taxed. The Americans have, they have plenty of government social security and healthcare and shit like that. They just choose to collect taxes and redistribute the wealth primarily by taking money from the poor and the middle class, whatever is left of the middle class, and completely ignore their higher earning parts of it. Rich get a free pass for being job creators, yep. How would we have jobs if Mr. Bezos didn't graciously allow us to work in his warehouses? Oh, thank God we have that job because Mr. Jobs created it for me. We all know that the only reason we have jobs is because the corporations have decided that they want to give us a wage instead of it the exact opposite being true and them constantly trying to automate us out of existence. It's always especially funny when corporations like McDonald's are like, if you raise the minimum wage, we'll have difficulty being able to pay all our minimum wage fast food workers, and you'll encourage us to automate some of these jobs. And I'm like, dog, if you could automate cooking a hamburger and like putting it on a fucking patty, you would have already done it. Stop pretending like you haven't wanted to automate everything forever for the longest time. Here's your complimentary piss bottle. See you in 12 hours. The cage is there to protect you from not working. Also, if there's any Euros still in chat, If you're an American, you 100% are going to be asked to take a fucking drug test. They will literally ask you to piss in a bottle before you can work at whatever your dead-end office job. They could technically, it would just be cheaper to pay people peanuts. I don't think you can automate food prep. There's too many like variables and the stuff is too soft. Alright guys, that's enough complaining about society. I think it's time for me to eat some food and jack off to porn and piss and then take a nap. I made some progress on this picture, but as usual I can't really draw when I'm speaking. See you around, boys. Have a nice night. Good night.